Welcome to episode 67 of the Made in Dreams podcast. Jamie and I are joined by Andy Robertson, author of Taming Gaming and freelance journalist with BBC, Forbes Tech, and The Guardian. Welcome, Andy. Good to have
Hello.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. So, being that we're here for a good time, not a long time today, give us a rundown of the man under the hood. What have you been working on?
So I've been a journalist for about 15 years, and I've always kind of specialised in this intersection between families and video games, and that's taken me in different directions. I kind of got into it when the Wii started, and other kind of journalists did the same thing, but they mostly moved on. And I kind of just stuck in that groove. But it's been fun, and it means I kind of have tracked the trends in how families are playing games together through various different things. Skylanders sort of period, obviously more recently with Switch and kind of families finding indie games. And then most recently, that led me to this treasure trove of games that basically families I realized didn't know about, of games you could play in dreams. And that's, basically how we're talking. So that's that's a very potted history. But that's kind of what got me here. Yeah.
All right. And so you created, or you just released a book, Taming Gaming, and created an online video game family database. Like, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I've got this book, which I've got here, Taming Gaming. And so was for families who are a bit worried about games. The parents who, quite understandably, might see some headlines in the newspaper, games about addiction and violence. And so it felt like there wasn't a kind of a book to send them to that would kind of actually do justice to what the science was saying about games. But also introduce them to what games were and kind of equip parents to kind of engage and play a part in this life of their kids, rather than just kind of policing it and trying to make it safe. So if I hold the book up, you can see it's in two halves. So the first half was kind of all that, the advice, again, as I said, sort of going back to science and stuff, and it's kind of what you'd expect. The second half is what the publisher calls the bonkers back of the book, because it's crowdfunded. It meant that we could go to town on the layout. And I wanted to try and come up with a way of helping parents who didn't play games at all to find games that they might like to play, both with their kids, but also themselves, and kind of move them into this kind of understanding of games as media rather than as entertainment. So in the back of the book, there are these games laid out like recipes. So what the game is, what ingredients you need to play, a sort of a method of getting started, and some serving suggestions of how families have enjoyed it, and then something to follow. And so there's just loads. There's 60 or so of those games in the back, and they're a lot of them are kind of indie games that if you're into gaming you've heard of, but parents kind of know about FIFA, know about Minecraft, but off that beaten track there are loads of opportunities for games that they might want to engage with or get their kids to play. And so that was the book. And then it was delayed because of the pandemic. Printing was delayed right all over, and so I had some time to kind of twiddle my thumbs, really. I mean, like, what should I do? So I was like, well, why don't I create a promotional site for the book, which I did. And the idea was to take those recipes from the back and kind of create like a searchable database, because the book didn't have an index, which we never got around to doing. And it meant that you could search the idea was you could search by platform or by age rating and stuff like that. So that's what we did, expecting it to just be this kind of little side project. And we published it. So, click go on the website, and it was instantly very, very popular. And I think because of the time it launched, there were lots of parents knowing that their kids were playing more games and trying to make sense of this, or like, how do we navigate this? Is it safe? Isn't it? And there was the database has lots of lists of games, kind of these unusual collections, a bit like Netflix, how it kind of pulls together, sets of films that have, quirky British comedies, or films because you watch Notting Hill, whatever it was. So we did that for games, and we had these lists at the back, list in the database with, like, of stuff around mental health. And so one of the lists was games that help you find calm. And during those early kind of months of the pandemic, that kind of, I guess, understandably now, was really helpful for parents, and it got a lot of views. And it was essentially, here's some games that if you play them, the people who play them, report that actually it's quite calming. And so either parents were like, oh, so if my kid isn't doing their homework and is playing a game, maybe they're not just misbehaving. Maybe this is part of how they're kind of coping with kind of a frightening world. And also, actually, I'd quite like my kids to play this game. They could do with a bit of calm. And so it kind of just struck lucky really with the timing. And I think was helpful in that conversation. It ended up on BBC Breakfast, and so it got it kind of its moment in the sun, and kind of grew from there. And I just got into this habit of looking for games to add to this database. Yeah.
And with
Interesting.
that, because I've been telling people that we were going to have a guest. I didn't tell them who, but I told them we would be having a guest, and I kept telling people in our community, like, if you know of games, give us the link so that we can have it added to the database. I didn't tell them it was a database, but they'll find out soon. But I do have that list of things to be added to the database from people who gave us
Yeah,
their
great.
In Dreams link. So for all of you that were wondering why I was hounding you for your information, this is why. So
Yeah.
I do like the approach of trying to explain gaming to basically to parents, because it does feel like that the only reason people fear gaming is because they don't, like, even though it's second nature to us, it's like there are people who literally have no idea what gaming is. And
Mm.
if they have children and see their kids putting all this time into something that they don't understand, and the only thing they get from it is what the media blames gaming for at the moment, like whatever that may be, then yeah,
Yeah.
it really helps to have something that shows the other side of gaming. And recently we had on a dreamer who actually created a self help well, he runs self-help classes about unleashing your inner superhero, and he was trying to work on a game to get it out, showing one of his meetings and stuff, like in dreams. And I thought that would be awesome as well for this, but he's still working on it. So I told him once he finishes to tell me,
Yeah.
and we'll get that on the database. But um I guess with dreams in particular
Mm.
regarding this database, like, we talked before about the similarities that were seen between what Roblox is, what dreams is, what it can be. I was wondering, like, did you want to share those thoughts
Mm.
with us regarding correlations in the future of dreams?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is that parents know about Roblox because the numbers of kids who play Roblox is sky high. Basically, if you've got a child who's 6 or 7, it's almost for sure that either they play Roblox or they're playing games in the playgrounds which are about Roblox, and so it's very ubiquitous. But it the quality is quite low and it's quite hit and miss, and so it's not as a curated a space as the Dreams games are. Would you call it the Dreamverse? And you should get the terminology right. Um, and so it feels a little bit more kind of like the Wild West Roblox, which is both kind of good and bad. It means that these ideas can spring up very quickly, get a huge audience, and there's a lot of churn at the same time. And I think that means that parents are a little bit cautious about that. It's rated in the UK, it's rated PEGI 7. So 7 plus Roblox is, compared to Dreams, which is 12 plus. And so there's the feeling that, younger kids might play it, and their expectations of what it should be, for those younger children are different because of that PEGI 7 rating. The other thing is that people who make games in Roblox make money. So they can sell items in there to players, and there's a subscriptions sort of setup as well. So there's kind of this commerce side of it, which again I think drives some of the creativity in a different direction. So games become more commercial. So some of the games on Roblox, like Adopt Me, have sort of 50, 60 developers working on a single game. And those developers, that's a full-time job, and they're being paid, those teams. And so the kind of ecosystem is quite different. And I don't think one is better than the other, but I think helping understand the differences is quite helpful for parents. And in the dream space, the challenge for parents is they don't know about it. And that's kind of my, it's like sort of a red rag to a bull. Like, if I can find these amazing games that no one knows about, I'm like, great, I've got something to tell people. And so, because that's really what the database is about, trying to connect parents with games they're going to love and want their kids to play. So while they'll have heard of Roblox, they won't have heard of Dreams. And so it was quite exciting to start putting together, okay, what games in the dream space would we want for families? And that's quite a specific list, because often the games that get the highest profile or get the most shares on Twitter, that kind of thing, are the ones that look amazing or aren't that interactive. You know, the breakfast plate and all that kind of stuff,
All the
which is
showcases,
great.
yeah.
And is amazing, but what doesn't get shared are the kind of the little gems that actually are really fully formed games. And so that and the database, that's kind of been the bar to find games that, you know, that would feel like they're complete experiences. They don't have to be super long, and particularly if I'm sort of saying they're good for really young players, then you know it can be, it can be something which could be short that you can play again and again. And it's been great to work, to have suggestions from the community. The curator, Lexi Wignall, helps us and helps adding stuff to the database. It's been really good to work with her, and certainly needed that expertise coming in because there's just so much to kind of understand and so much to find. But that's what we're trying to do, is curate a very specific list of games that we think are a really good fit for parents. And then once they're in the database, they then pop up alongside the other games. So if you search for PlayStation 4 games, puzzle games of a certain age or a certain phrase, then you get a Dreams game come up alongside other games that you might on the PlayStation.
And Dreams is on sale currently for $9.99, which I just can't for the life of me
so cheap.
It's just constantly on sale, like all the time. It's just such good value for money.
Yeah. And so for those of you, tell people we're doing everything we can to get Dreams out into the masses. And I mean, no doubt there's going to be probably a huge flux whenever Sony and Media Molecule put out A Winter's Tale, because that was some big news that really did get Dreams pretty much onto every tech publication everywhere, which was the first time I've seen that. So yeah, so I guess you were talking about how people have created their own studios within Roblox, and there's the monetary aspect of it. There's also been reports regarding like the kind of like the shadier side of that, and I don't want to go into that, but I do want to, like, do you have an idea for how Media Molecule could monetize without going into said negative space, or is it impossible just because they're people? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think from a parent's perspective, in terms of the money side, what you want is predictability. And so what kind of often catches people out and what often makes headlines is where a child plays a game, the parent maybe puts in their credit card so they can pay the $12.99 cost to play it. What they don't realize is that card can then be used for in-game purchases, and then you get the headline, a child spends £1,000 or whatever on Robux, and the parent didn't know. And obviously that's not a great situation. But as long as you understand, how you're spending money, then you can stay ahead of it. And the easiest way to do that is with a subscription. And actually, that's what Roblox offers now. That's why I would say to parents is go for that subscription, and then the child gets a certain amount of Robux each month, and you get a discount. And it's very predictable. And then you can lock down the account so they can't make other spend. And so I think something like that, where you're paying, a subscription, a monthly subscription, and getting access to exclusive content, but also like the curation, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because you can't just say, okay, you can access Dreams with a subscription or whatever. You need to be able to find the great games, and the different audiences have a different criteria for what games. If the more mainstream kind of core gamers have a different requirement than a family, and equally within a family, different people will want different things as well. So that's why we're starting to sort of piece through it. And one of the nice things about the database is it can segment that quite well. So a big part of it is tracking accessibility. And so, what do the games offer in terms of ability to remap controls, or how many buttons do you need? We often add games that have been made on Dreams that are a single button, and I love those. And often they're really kind of inventive how you control things with a single button. But also games that account for colorblind issues, whether you need subtitles, and all those sorts of things. And actually, the Dreams games that I've come across often impress me, and often go actually further than some sort of commercial games. And so in the database, we flag all those things. And so when you do a search, you could say search for Dreams games, but you could say search for Dreams games with subtitles, or search for Dreams games that are colorblind friendly, or again, you could search for Dreams games that are suitable for a particular age. So if you had a child of a particular age, we categorize games by age. So again, I think that kind of curation is really important when you've got this space. And Media Molecule do that a lot for the IMPI Awards, which we've just got now. But I think sort of having a little bit more nuance in that would be a powerful thing to do. But a lot of it is just telling parents that it's there. There's this, $12.99. You can see that as a lifetime of subscription to play all these games. So it's this amazing value. I think one big difference that we've all sort of touched on is that online play. And so I think that would be interesting. And for kids, that really kind of moves the dial, being able to play with other people, looking at things like proximity chat. And obviously, as you do that, you really need, the careful protections in place. And that's what Roblox has worked hard to do. So you have to use driving license or passport now to prove that you're an adult. So you can then say, yes, it's okay for my child to do this or that in terms of communication. So it's quite a fraught area, because there's lots of things you could get wrong, but also there's lots of opportunity. And I think, Roblox was often talked about negatively, but generally the volume of people who play it love it, and kids love it, and it's this hugely positive thing. It has some some edge to it. That's the nature of that's the nature of the space, I think. And so I still feel like it's a really great thing.
Well, Jamie, I don't know if you know, but your cam went out. He must have had to go into a meeting or something. But basically, I mean, I get what you're saying, and a lot of people in the community, even like in our Discord, they're starting to get a little, how would you put it? I don't want to say impatient, because that has a negative connotation, but a lot of people are wanting that like exporting and monetization to basically keep them within Dreams, which, as I always tell them, is understandable, because if you spend how long some of our creators have spent creating these beautiful games or shows or animations, graphic novels, everything, music, people have created albums, like, I understand wanting to get money back from basically what you put in, but I also wanted to ask you whether or not you feel, I'll say I'll give my opinion afterward. But do you feel that that's something that Dreams should have at all? Because I keep coming back to this thought, like, yeah, there's Roblox and the monetization, but I keep coming back to this thought of, I always tell the story of my friend who played over 2 million matches of Gears of War 5. And, like, I had never seen a stat like that on on anything. And it's just like, he put a ton of time into it, was really good, probably should have gone pro given the time that he put into it. But he never got to that point where he was like, I want money. It was just, he could come home after work, play Gears until he was needed around the house, and and that was it. So it's like, I know and feel that like Media Molecule is working on monetization and exportation and all these things, because people want them, and they haven't let us down yet as far as trying to give us what we want and trying to be as open as they can about what they're working on without getting backlash. But if Dreams merely stayed what it is right now, would that be a negative overall, or would it just kind of tend to be like a wasted potential? Like, it could have been more, and the option to be more should have been there.
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? I think what you need to be clear, this is what I say to families, is that if you're going into this planning to learn to make things in Dreams, then you should look at other more open platforms like Unity or whatever else. Like, because although Dreams will lead you into it, and in some ways it's approachable in a way that those others aren't, actually there's lots of alternatives that if you want to go down a kind of a more commercial route and not be tied in, then you can do that. I think as long as you go in with eyes open and knowing that, there's an elegance to doing stuff in dreams, and there's this because it's not commercialized, you can access all these assets and it's all free, and so you get everything under one house. But you need to know that is means that you're putting hours into a product that will still, at the end of the day, as I understand it, will be owned by a media molecule, I guess. I mean, I've not looked into the EULA in terms of who owns that. So I think as long as you know that ahead of time, that's kind of understandable, and because of that, then everything within that ecosystem is then shareable, and so it has those benefits as well. And like we've got those commercial kind of options already, and so it's nice, I think, to have something that is less commercial and is this kind of ring fenced sort of safe house sort of thing, that has got a lot of benefits as well. But still, I think also I would probably say to parents that it takes, it's not just like you can buy your child dreams and away they go. It takes time, and probably they need an adult in their life who's going to help them get into it and continue that journey. But as long as you know that, then I think, in terms of what you're spending, it's your time, really. That's the question. Do you want to spend the time here? Yeah. So it'd be nice. It'd be nice bit of export stuff. It'd be nice to be able to create a standalone experience that you could play in a browser. Whether you make money off from it or not, I don't know. But it'd be nice, to be able to say, okay, I did this thing, and then it could have this viral effect, and it could then, do a Wordle, and then, the idea gets told. But I should think that's challenging, because as soon as you do that, there's lots of rights issues and things like that.
And all right, well, yeah. I just wanted to go through that thought exercise because I feel Dreams is going to monetize, it is going to export, it is going to do all these things, but
eventually.
But like I said, ever since I thought about my friend, I keep coming back to that thought of like, if like basically what was just discussed, and I guess and at the same time it's unfair. It's an unfair thought to people who create games because everything else can be exported. Like it's only the games that are trapped. So like I understand that as a thing. It's just like, as I always tell people, for me, I never came into Dreams for gaming. And so it just has me, think about it from this outside point. But I guess ultimately, just to go back to the website one more time, I just really love the idea. I love the fact that you have like a working algorithm that will train itself to like promote things that you may not look at. And that's fantastic. And then, I see it as a way to get, as you said, get dreams out there, to get more things that aren't like these huge, that aren't just like It Takes Two or all these big name games. And it gives, again, for the Dreams community, a pathway to get more eyeballs and more, more players into Dreams, which is something that people have consistently said, we need more of, because there's a ton of creators that are working on things and putting together things and just doing things that are so professionally impressive. And, not just the people who, get the thousands of views on, social media, but people who put out things you can tell they're just starting and you're like, wow, this person came out of left field. Nobody knows them, but they're creating gold, like all those people. And it's good to have some form of advertisement, as well as the overall purpose of the database itself, just working along in unison with Dreams creators. So guys, if you don't see it here, taminggaming.com is where you can go to get to the family video game database, and you can follow him at taminggamingdb on Twitter, as well as follow Andy at Geek Dad Gamer.
If you've got a Dreams games, that's unusual, and maybe it has a bit of a family bent to it, we're very happy to add them. And we spend on a dreams game, we'll spend as long documenting and creating the page for a dreams game as we would say for Pokemon. So we're really sort of saying that these games need to have this kind of this platform, and we get 10 it peaks about 20,000 a day some days. That was our sort of biggest day, Christmas Day. And so if it kind of chimes with families, it can be quite a good way to do it, to get them sort of in front of a different audience. And that's what we find, like quite a lot of parents will Google, is Call of Duty okay for my 12-year-old? They'll come to our site, read the Call of Duty page, but then at the bottom we have all these similar game suggestions to help them. If they think Call of Duty is not okay, well, what else do you play? And so if there's a dreams game that's got a theme around shooting, then that would appear. And because they're kind of age rated, then you can pick them by age order to suit your child. And so there's a lot of parents who come for the big AAA games, but will go away thinking, oh, perhaps we'll play this indie game, or now, perhaps we'll play a dreams game. And well, maybe, a lot of families I speak to are buying dreams not to create, just they're seeing it as a subscription, like a one-off subscription to get access to these games. So, and I think that's great value, because it's a one-off. The other subscription services aren't doing the same thing. So I think it's something that's going to increase, and I'm excited to be part of it on the database, because we're kind of ahead of the curve. I think it feels like this is something that's going to be more and more promoted to families, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm excited to be part of that, really.
I'm just going through and showing different pieces of the website and showing how game details are broken down. We had a question from Topaz Mackey in chat saying he may have missed this, but is the database searchable by age group?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So on the database, if you want to search in a detailed way, I just have to bring it up to tell you where to go. There's a couple of ways to do that. If you go to the Start Here menu, you can then go to Find Positive Games, and that will take you to like a breakdown of individual searching. You can also get there as well. If you click the search button, it will say search database or browse for games. But once you're in that section, you can then essentially pick any criteria in the database. So it's hugely comprehensive. So you could pick age rating, which is about the content of the game. You could pick our skill rating for your child, which is not about what's in the game. It's like how old you need to be to play it, like what sort of level of skill. And then obviously you could pick platform, and you could pick a dream subscription. But you could also then say, I want games if you click the accessibility button, you could go through games with subtitles or games that have fewer buttons. And so you can essentially craft your own searches. And when you've done that, you can just save the URL, and that's then saved as a search for you. You could also click the heart buttons on the games, and then they go into your account. And then actually the database will actually then look at the games you're hearting, and on your account, it will start to suggest similar games to the ones that you've already liked. So it's kind of, the idea is that it's very low entry. You come in and it's very simple. It's just usually a single game they're reading about, but then that kind of leads them into discovering a wider set of games. And obviously Dreams is a big part of that.
I'm actually, while you were talking, I was going through and showing the accessibility sections for different games, as well as showing the age rating and things like that. It really is. Guys, I'm telling you, it actually really is an impressive site. But we had a talk from Insolitude. If I'm destroying that, I'm sorry. But he said, I really believe in the educational power of dreams. I really think it can be a powerful tool to teach things to kids. As a physiotherapist in real life, I use dreams to create fun experiences in VR so my patients can do exercises while having fun. I mean, guys, I think the entire first season of the podcast was completely spent on me just screaming about the fact that dreams just as a tool, like, I think it should be given to every child on the planet. Like, I personally don't care about age range. But that's because I was raised weird. I didn't know how weird until recently, but I never had an age rating. Like, I watch anything within reason. I mean, but like, I could watch rated R movies. Like, I grew up on old zombie movies, being like 4, seeing like the old school zombie movies that even I could be like, yeah, maybe a child shouldn't see that. Like, all these things, but like, it's the power of dreams. Like I get it's the thing I always wanted, and that now that I'm older, it's like one of those things that you experience that you wish you could share with like a child. Like if I had it's like Adventure Time. Like if I had children, I would buy, like, basically I would have Adventure Time just so I could watch it with them. It made me want kids. So that's what I feel about dreams, and I really think it's because even though there are other how would you say, other creation engines and tools that you can use to make things, I think in my entire life, I think dreams is the only engine that I've ever experienced that was made by artists. Like not programmers and mathematicians, but artists. So it's actually intuitive to to creating. I may not be the greatest dreamer, by the way, but I started out in dreams able to do more than what I was able to do in 3 months of focusing on Blender. Like, and that type of accessibility is invaluable. Like I would love to just have it so like dreams should be like given to every like troubled youth. Just like that's like my dream. I don't know why it's my dream, but it's like the first time I saw it, I was like, if at-risk children could be given this, like, yeah, there's other things that need to happen. I'm not just saying it'll cure every ill of the world, but I just feel like it's such just a doorway to so much more that I didn't have access to growing up, and that I think other people would really appreciate. It would change their horizons. But anyway, back,
yeah, well said.
Yeah, I mean, as as Jen would say, the dreams evangelist has spoken. But it's truly how I feel about this creation engine. So,
well, I mean, you're right on point, though. I mean, just the way that it can outlet creativity in a way that, game development or music development, art or anything can be quite difficult to get into. And Dreams allows you that gateway to make that experience so much more simpler to understand. And especially in a intuitive way where, they have a controller that they're so used to playing with already. They already know the layout and the mechanics of this controller. So learning to develop stuff with that controller already makes the experience so much easier for people that haven't had much experience with a PC, for instance. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic way of bringing people into creation that necessarily didn't have the tool set previously to do it.
Yeah, and I think it really lowers the boundary, the barrier, sorry, to coming into it. And I think part of that is because it's inherently playful, and that you're holding the thing that you play games with, and then you're creating with it. And so it kind of feels like, well, if you hold a pencil, you've got to write words that make sense. If you hold a controller, you can just muck about and you can make mistakes and just do silly things. And I think particularly, when kids are getting started, it's that bit of it. They really, they can just muck about, and then suddenly they realize that they're doing things and creating things that would be difficult, that they wouldn't probably stumble upon. And it's letting them give themselves permission to sort of get things wrong. I remember talking to my old English teacher who would always say about poetry, if I could just get you to write some words, even if they're silly, mixed up words, then you'd be away. And it's that barrier to getting started, I think, because Dreams is really clever because you're holding this playful thing. You can just make mistakes and muck about, and suddenly there's things on the screen. I think the challenge, though, is the bit after that. Like, how do you then get that so that actually it moves into the kind of this area where you're creating something like the other things you see? And that's the thing where you do need an adult, or you need some guidance, but to get you there. But that the early stages, I think, is really magical.
Absolutely.
I want to ask, because I said I would for a few people. Dreams is so much more than video games, and I think that's the beauty of it. Personally, like I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. You've created ridiculous things that deserve. I say it all the time, and I try to be uh, as nice about it as possible. But what I see in Dreams is truly, to me, on par, if not better than 85% of the Steam library. That's like, y'all, people do amazing work. And so, but outside of gaming, and being that the site is focused on gaming, is there ever going to be a chance for people who haven't focused on the gaming side to get in on that? Because I mean, there's been a lot of people who've created shows, short films. There's the guy who used to work on Adventure Time, who I brought up last time, who started his basically a show around puppets, like an old school puppet show in Dreams, and he's kind of gone silent, but silent, and he's, I think maybe that show might have gotten picked up somewhere, but there's a lot of stuff coming out of Dreams. So is there a place for those creations within the database in the days, years to come?
Yeah, I think, well, the database is about games, and so that's the portion, that's the thing that's most interesting. But I think what I see is that that's a really good inroad into these other things. And so the best way to hook a parent, I think, is to say, look, here are these amazing games you can access for a very low price, and also they've been created by often quite young creators. And actually, for that price of accessing these games, your kids can also make them. And then here's other things that have been made. And what I would hope is that the database is kind of like an example of, the Dream stuff needs to be alongside everything else. And in my space, it's games, but other sites that talk about, digital art or music or that, really Dreams needs to be part of those integrated worlds as well. So I hope what we're doing here on the game side kind of is inspiration, particularly because it's successful. We get a lot of great feedback and parents love it. And I'm hoping that would inspire other sites to do something similar. But my expertise is games, and so although I love sharing stuff, and I'll often tweet about the rest of it, but I know that parents follow me to find out about games, and so that is my focus.
Yeah, it's great that you're doing that as well, because it really helps with what I would call the stigma around Dreams of, it's a Dreams thing, like, you don't really want to look into that. And the fact that you're placing all of these games at the same side as, traditional games made on traditional engines really helps to break down that barrier of a game is a game regardless of where it's made. So yeah, it's good to see that hopefully your website might be the footsteps needed to sort of break the stigma around Dreams content, and it be merged in sites with other types of media as well.
Yeah, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, that's nice, but is it? How many levels is it, or how many demos is it more like a demo?" And because we've sought out the Dreams games which are more fully featured experiences, we can always say, "Oh no, we've seen this played through, and it is many hours of content. It is like a commercial game." It is, essentially it is. And so I think that is one of the things that I hear pushback on. It's like, "Oh, it's fine, but is it, these are just little demos or little showcases," but that's not true. There's loads of really fully featured experiences in Dreams that that I love, and we test and we play them, and I'm like, I spent the whole evening. I was going to play the new Uncharted, and I haven't. I've played a whole lot of Dreams games, and I've had a great time. And so, what's wrong with that? So I think that's kind of part of the magic of it. Really, it's great.
Indeed. So, look, guys, we only have probably about 10 minutes left. About 10 minutes. But thank you, everybody, for stopping through. We're not ending just yet, but I do want to kind of go into what do you think it'll take? Because we talked about, or you mentioned how, Dreams and before you had said even Roblox, it's not considered on the same stage as gaming. So you don't get like the, IGNs talking about it. You don't see it put up next to, I guess, gaming. And we've seen our fair share of it on, Twitter, where people are saying, like, if you make something in Dreams, you're just role playing being a game dev. Like, I guess you would call it, I guess gatekeeping is what we just to shorten this statement. Like, and exposure will help with that, most definitely. But I guess what what do you think will change it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
putting like trying to get it out there and put it up next to things, but what do you think will change that perception? Like, what'll make everybody knows I have a war with IGN now. They don't know about it. They don't know about the war, but I have a war with IGN because
Yeah.
I can't for the life of me understand. Like, they'll do a video about um like what's the most exciting thing about PSVR 2 and what it could be. And they'll list all these games, even games that aren't even out yet, and they'll never say anything about Dreams, which I mean, it's just insane to me. So yeah, I have my war, but what do you think will do it? Like, do you think the new movie being made with Dreams is going to be the thing that kicks it in, or do you see like a specific like milestone that can push Dreams more into the mainstream?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my take would be Dreams doesn't need that sort of exposure, really. It's this whole different thing. So I mean, Roblox, it isn't getting that exposure either. And kind of, core gamers or whatever you want to call us, we might be a bit like, oh, it's not really, it's just a Roblox game. But it's making more money and getting more players than many AAA franchises. And so Roblox isn't like, oh, why aren't we on IGN? Because they're like, who cares? We're a bigger thing, and we're kind of in the mainstream culture, and we're being written about in newspapers because of the phenomenon of it. And I think really that's a better future for Dreams, rather than being like, oh, why can't kind of relatively small compared to mainstream media sites, why can't they write about it for the gamers? And actually, its future is much broader. And I think that is, like the mums and dads I speak to wouldn't know what IGN was. They would just be like, what's that? Is that a newspaper? What is it? But obviously they would have heard about the Independent or the Telegraph or whatever. And that's really, I think, what's exciting, is because Dreams has a massive potential to go there. I think one thing which would really move the needle in terms of volume for kids anyway is online play, and being able to have experiences that are much more multiplayer focused, which is a massive thing in terms of development, I know. But I think that would create certainly the sort of the virality, if that's the right word, sort of viral hit aspect of a Roblox game. But it would come with problems and challenges as well. But I think that would be from a parent's, or maybe from a child's perspective, that would really make it very exciting.
Indeed. And Jamie, how do you feel about that response?
Quite mixed. I mean, multiplayer obviously is something that could definitely push Dreams into the mainline media, and it could, as you say, the virality of it could definitely expedite with multiplayer. However, I do think that Sony could definitely do a lot more right now to push Dreams into the right market, because there is so many people you can market Dreams for. You've got the players, creators, musicians, filmmakers, game devs. It covers such a wide spectrum of different things that Dreams has the ability to do, and yet it's not being marketed to any of those type of creators or players at all. So although I agree with you that what you're saying does have truth to it, but I still think that from a gamer's perspective, I think Sony should be doing a lot more to push this into the mainstream market, because it just has so much potential to cover so many bases.
Yeah, it feels like it could have more prestige. Whether that would make I think everyone's kind of, most gamers would have heard of Dreams and would know what it is, and probably would have mainly made a decision already about it. But it does kind of lack that. It feels like, oh, this hidden gem that isn't talked about enough. And I think from a prestige perspective, that would be nice to hear it.
I think one of the main issues that Dreams has, though, is that obviously from its initial release, there was just very little content on the platform, and the content that was there was predominantly memes and silly things that people created quickly just to see how the engine worked. And when all of these reviewers and YouTubers and enthusiasts started playing this and started doing content on YouTube for it, that's where the stigma for Dreams came, was, oh, it just has this small silly content on there. So I think if Sony did another push for Dreams now, for all of these YouTubers and content creators to go back into Dreams and play all of the new amazing stuff that is now available in there, because people have had time to develop stuff, I think that would help change the perception of Dreams and what's possible with it.
Yeah, I guess some of it's about audience, isn't it? Like the streamers, influencers would do that more if the audience was going to come. You know, they're driven by numbers, aren't
Yeah.
they? And probably they know that lots of young kids will watch them do a video about some silly Roblox game, but those same kids wouldn't watch them do about this Amazing Dreams game, because often I guess Roblox is more, you know, pinned into, like when Squid Game came out on Netflix, there were loads of similar knockoff, basically, kind of Squid Game experiences, and some of them stood the test of time and some of them didn't. So it has that kind of culture hook, I think, Roblox, that is tricky, because Dreams is a more curated space. I suspect that if someone created a game that was basically like Squid Game, I think it probably wouldn't stand. Is that right? You tell me. Is it more sort of policed in that way? In terms of brand and IP?
It is and it isn't. You know, I've seen loads of different games that's been based off of different IPs that have just been instantly got, you know, blocked on Dreams, purely not from Media Molecule's perspective, but from the Sony side, where, you know, they're looking into all the stuff that's being uploaded onto their servers and it gets blocked. But then, you know, there is still plenty of stuff in Dreams that doesn't get blocked. Like, for instance, there is a ton of Sonic stuff on there, you know, tons and tons of it, and Mario and stuff, and that still seems to just live on there without any sort of sacrifice. So it's weird. It, like, some stuff does and some stuff doesn't. It's quite strange in that respect.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, guys, we have officially gotten the 10-minute timer.
I saw that pop up, yeah.
I told you, I had a feeling it was coming.
In the meter.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll close. I mean, hopefully we can have you back at another time. I know you're a busy man.
And do send those suggestions for games. Do send them to me.
Oh yes, I have them already cleared up. We'll, after we go off, so we're not giving out precious information. Well, after we end this, I'll go ahead and get my entire list to you. Everybody that sent their game to me, now you know it's for the database, and we're going to go ahead and get those over to them so you can implement them. And be sure to check out the website. Again, that's taminggaming.com. Go ahead and log in, get your access, show it to people. Helping the website helps us get more people in Dreams. Okay, this is how it works. This is how it works. I consider this let me say, and maybe this is just me once again being the Dreams evangelist, but I consider this a collab. I consider this a collab, and a good collab for Dreams. Okay, I'm not with MM, but I'm doing my part. That's so any last words before we get kicked off?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's just been good to chat about it. You know, we squirrel away at these kind of the data, and you see people come and go, but it's just nice to hear kind of firsthand from people who kind of appreciate it, and it kind of inspires us. We continue adding, you know, not just more games, so we're kind of improving the quality of that data as well in terms of accessibility. We've just been adding a whole multiplayer thing for whether you can play together or cooperatively, and so that's again another thing. So it's just it's nice to be able to kind of share it with your audience. I appreciate you having me here. It's great.
It's a fantastic website, and the fact that it exists, you know, for people like that is truly brilliant. And yeah, I hope you continue to curate it and build it up, and, you know, give these parents an insight into gaming is not all about Call of Duty, killing people, and Grand Theft Auto, and the cliches of gaming that parents should naturally swing into because of what they saw on Facebook. So yeah, you're really opening the eyes to parents around the world of the, you know, indie titles and inspirational, you know, games that children can play and can really open their eyes to something. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, lots of parents have been like, I was looking for games for the kids, and actually I've played them myself. That's quite nice as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun actually. So it's a great job to have.
Fantastic. And with that, before we get hurried out, I'm going to go ahead and end for today. Thank you to everybody who was able to show up for the for basically this early morning podcast. For me, it's later in the day for these guys. They're fine.
You're fine, yeah.
But we make sacrifices all in the names of Dreams. Okay, we get out there, we put it out there. So with that, thank you everybody for coming through. I'm gonna see if there's anybody to rate as far as Dreams is concerned, and we'll be back in our normal time tomorrow to speak with Lol Pokemans, and yeah, that's everything. Keep dreaming,
Great.
dreamers. Keep dreaming.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Cheers. See ya.
Bye.